Hello guys and welcome back to DarkHorse FM, and in today's video, what I have before you is the recreation of the Asymmetrical Bulldozer 4123 tactic from Football Manager 2015. I did go on to have loads of success with this tactic in FM 2015, FM 2016 and FM 2017, but the year gap or the leap between FM 2017 and FM 2023 is so large. But so when I went on to recreate this tactic, in fact in this video I'm going to show you how I go on to recreate this tactic for Football Manager 2023, and I'm testing out this tactic with Standard Liege, and they are in the Jupiler Pro League in Belgium, and currently I think we're predicted to finish in 6th place. So we're going to see how well this tactic works out. I'm also going to show you the internal player instructions and the opposition instructions that are attached to this tactic, and the team instructions as well, how to go about applying this tactic and how I was able to get this tactic to play the way that it should in Football Manager 2023. So for this tactic, as I mentioned before, it's a 4-1-2-3 system. Well, in my head it looks like a 4-1-2-2-1 system. And for the original Asymmetrical Bulldozer tactic, the deep lying forward was actually on support duty, and then you had a winger on also playing on support duty. You had a shadow striker on attack. Apparently this was an advanced playmaker on attack duty, a wide midfielder on support, and box-to-box midfielder have an anchor man. At that time it was called the anchor man. Well, you have an anchor now. You have two central defenders, this kind of stayed the same, and then you have a standard goalkeeper on defend duty. But for this Football Manager 2023, I noticed that we had better results using this system because the original system kind of turned out to be blunt in Football Manager 2023. We're able to hold possession of the ball, but we weren't able to create that many chances and be lethal in front of goal and score as many goals as we should. Also, we're quite shaky defensively, and I noticed that in the fullback position, for the original tactic creator went on to use complete wing backs on both sides on attack duty. So that's kind of like a defensive disaster in Football Manager 2023. So I went on to tweak those roles with so much testing, and now realize that to some extent this is what actually works better in Football Manager 2023. Obviously it's not a perfect tactic. There's going to be a little bit more work to do for it to suit your team, something like that. But as a base setup, this was a balance between offensive creativity and defensive solidity for this tactic. So for the goalkeeper's position, I opted for a super keeper on support duty, and then I added the instruction to pass it shorter. That's because I still want to play out from the back, even though giving my goalkeeper the freedom to try and create chances from counter-attacks if the opposition presents itself. I opted for two central defenders, even though this was the original. I didn't choose to use the ball-playing defenders in this case, but you can always use one ball-playing defender if you have one player that is obviously a bit more adventurous, has good passing range. You can go on to use one ball playing defender, or you can use two ball playing defenders, knowing that there's a solid player that is actually acting as a holding midfielder here, as opposed to your two complete wing backs on the attack duty. I changed those roles completely because I noticed that in FM 2023 they are quite overly attacking, and that's not very good because you're going to find yourself conceding so many goals unnecessarily, goals from long balls over the top, and if there's nobody covering the space here, it's not going to be very helpful. And then a fullback on attack duty was a player on the left, and then I asked him to take more risks, dribble more, shoot less often, and all the other instructions were defaults for the fullback on attack duty. That way he's acting as a defensive player primarily, and then he's also going to get forward when the opportunity presents itself. The wingback on support duty is a player on the right hand side, and he's a fullback on the right, or the wingback on the right, and he has been asked to take more risks and shoot less often. As opposed to the wide midfielder that we had before, I opted for a wide playmaker on support duty. That's because this guy is supposed to come into the midfield and try and help out in the central midfield areas. The wide midfielder on support in Football Manager 2016 and Football Manager 2015 had the capacity to get into the central midfield and into the AM position and try to create chances from the middle of the field. But I noticed that the wide midfielder on Football Manager 2023, and indeed recent Football Manager games, doesn't behave in that manner. So I opted for a wide playmaker on support. As you can see here, the wide playmaker on support acts as the prime creator in the side, drifting inside the middle spaces to try and stay in the central half spaces sort of in Football Manager. And then with the support duty, you can see that he's going to sit in the central midfield position when his teammates have the ball, and then obviously going to be slightly wider when his team is out of possession. The box-to-box midfielder is one role that I didn't change, but I also added the instructions to take more risks, dribble more, shoot less often, move into channels. This player's, as the description of it, as the role described, his role is to get into the box both boxes, that's the attacking area and the defensive box as well. Try and control the midfield and serve as a link between this gap that's up here and the gap that is behind him. The attacking midfielder is a shadow striker on attack duty. Originally, he was an advanced playmaker on attack duty, and often you can actually go on to use an advanced playmaker on attack. But I realized that the shadow striker is more effective because this guy is also responsible for linking up with the deep line forward and trying to create chances and score goals. He has been asked to shoot less often and to tackle harder. The winger was a tricky one because I could opt for an inverted winger here, but then I realized that the box-to-box midfielder is going to somehow get into this position here, and I don't want everybody to be too narrow. So I opted for a winger on attack duty as opposed to support because I didn't want to have the wing back on support duty that's going to be getting to this area here and try to play low crosses from wide areas, from deep wide areas. And with the winger on support duty, he's obviously going to get ahead and try to whip the ball into the box and play a cross. So I wanted this guy to be a bit more adventurous and try to get into the box and score goals and act as as an attacking outlet for the team. So having him play as a winger on attack duty was also very relevant to how this team plays. And then of course the deep line playmaker on attack duty could have been on support, but then I opted for the attack duty role so he can still link up with the shadow striker and the winger on attack duty while still trying to create chances for himself and for the team. His only instruction is to roam from positions. For team instructions, I realized the tactic relied a lot on controlling possession of the ball without being too much of a possession-based tactic. So I opted for a positive mentality, and while in possession, I left the passing directness on standard, that way slightly shorter. We're trying to control the game without being too reliant on having high possession numbers or passing the ball too short and trying to waste time most of the time. So you notice that the tempo is slightly higher with the passing directness just slightly shorter. Playing out of defense is relevant, as you saw from the goalkeeper's instruction. Even though I'm playing him on support, he has asked to play short passes, and then you can see the walk the ball into the box instruction and be more expressive are also instructions that can help us try and control games and create spaces where there's difficulty creating spaces. And then with the players that we have, with the player rules that we've also selected, there's going to be a lot of movement to try and create that confusion and try have players move around a bit to try and create those chances and create those gaps. While you're in transition, there's only the counter press instruction that has been selected, and since we're still trying to control the game, we're not going to force counter attacks. If there's a space to go on a counter, the team will probably do that because of the players that are on attack DT. But if the counter attack isn't on, we're not going to force it. You can see the slow the pace down instruction has also been selected that's for the goalkeeper. Even though the team is not playing with a low beat, let's say a shorter, low tempo style of play, the slow the pace down instruction was also going to help the team try to control the game better and try and pass the ball around themselves a lot. When the team is out of possession, the much higher line of engagement, much higher defensive line, and then the high press has also been selected. That way the team, everybody in the team is kind of compressed together, so there's a gap, or let's say there is no gap for where the opposition to try and play through. We're still susceptible to the ball over the top, which is also why I selected a sweeper keeper on support duty, because I expect that my goalkeeper is going to get out and try and mop up those loose balls that are over the top. The preferential goalkeeper distribution has also been selected with extremely high pressing. That way we can try and win the ball back in the middle third of the field, try and win the opposition or win the ball from the opposition as soon as possible whenever we had the chance to do that. And then they trap the opposition outside to try and push them into the wings and then try to win the ball from that region. As you can see, the stop crossing engagement has been selected for this tactic. For opposition instructions, they are quite tricky. You'd notice that in the OIs, I actually went onto the position section of the opposition instruction and then went on to include this, because these are set in stone opposition instructions that are going to help us try to control games with this tactic. You're going to see that the DM has actually been set to have type marking on and trigger press instructions. So players that are playing in this central defensive midfielder position are going to have that type marking locked onto them, and then the trigger press has also been locked onto them. But there's also trigger press for players that are in the defensive midfield left and right positions. In case there's a 4-2-3-1 that they're playing with two sitters, they're going to have a trigger press for those players there. And you have show on to weaker foot for players that are in positions that are going to infect the game, or let's say affect the game from out wide. That's the fullbacks, left and right fullbacks, left and right wing backs as well, left and right midfielders, left and right wingers. They've also been, all these positions have been asked to show them onto weaker foot. And for internal player instructions during the game, I'm still going to apply opposition instructions as every game goes on. If you need details of how to apply opposition instructions on Football Manager 2023 to try and get the best out of your team, check this video out. And I made a detailed video about opposition instructions. You can go on to check about that video. I'm also going to attach a link in the description so you can check that video for yourself and see how it works out. You can check that video and see how to apply opposition instructions for your team. So I put our tactic to the test in the Belgium Jupiler Pro League, and looking at the competition, Standard Liege as well, we went on to win the league, but we're tied for points with KRC Genk, which is something you don't see very often. We've won 24 times. It's probably why we won the league in the end, and they've won 23, and then we haven't. Okay, I think there's just one more game left. But looking at the team stats so far, we aren't the highest scorers in the league for some reason, but in the recent game that we've had, looking at the schedule so far, there's a game against Anderlecht. Okay, we went on to beat Anderlecht 5-0 away from home, and then we have the one game against Club Brugge in the championship group, and then hopefully that actually is the deciding game. So if we go on to win Club Brugge, we go on to win the league. So it's probably why we haven't yet gone on to win the league, and that's how we're looking. And then looking at the most points per game, 1.38. That everybody actually had a bad season in this league. 1.15, that's completely off, so the tactic probably needs more work. Looking at the most goals, Genk, like I mentioned, had 68, 57 goals for Standard Liege, and then fewest conceded were out there in fourth, so a lot more work to be done defensively for this tactic. Possession, I don't expect us to be that high. We were second with 62% possession, which is odd because we aren't actually playing a possession-based style of play, but most dribbles Standard Liege, fewest conceded Standard Liege as well, which is quite good. Most shutouts, our goalkeeper has been doing a lot, 22 shutouts, and then most tackles won were Serang FC. Yeah, but that's how this tactic turned out for us. It's a 4-1-2-3 system, the Asymmetrical Bulldozer recreation from Football Manager 2016. And obviously this tactic is going to take a lot more work to do. And if you have some tweaks that you're going to go on to make with this tactic, do let me know in the comment section. And also I'm going to attach a link in the description so you can download this tactic for yourself and go on to make those tweaks. I go on to test out Football Manager tactics like this here on DarkHorse FM. So if you're new to the channel, remember to hit the subscribe button so you can get notified when new tactic videos come out. Stay in touch with the channel. I'm going to catch you in the next video with another tactic video.